Nicholas Heap works at the David Suzuki Foundation, an environmental organization that keeps up to speed on climate change developments. His work has led him to examine different kinds of offsets, and he found that tree planting projects are risky ventures.
The problem with a growing tree is that initially these trees are very small. They're little tiny seedlings, and from year to year they might grow from here to here, but there's virtually no sequestration happening in the very, very first years of a tree. Once a tree gets to 20, 30 years of age, it can start really packing on the carbon, but not at first. And that poses a problem for tree planting projects because you have to sell those offsets today.
In a report released last year, the Suzuki Foundation identified 3 areas where tree planting offsets fall short. The first is timeliness. It takes decades for a tree to grow large enough to totally offset the emissions of today. Permanence is another issue. Tree planting projects may succumb to forest fires, infestations, or other accidents that result in most of their carbon being re-released into the atmosphere. Lastly, measurement refers to the difficulties in figuring out exactly how many tons of carbon a tree will absorb.
The conclusion that we draw from an analysis of the relative strengths of renewable energy and energy efficiency offsets versus, say, a tree planting offset is that these offsets are different in kind, okay? And that the tree planting offsets are just inherently of lower quality.
The Suzuki Foundation is not opposed to tree planting offsets. They just argue that such high-risk credits should come cheap. But unsurprisingly, Falls disagrees. He says his company invests a lot of time and money making their offsets top quality.
We have our calculations taken to the very highest standard by third party auditors, validators, verifiers. If anybody wants to come in and see how that works, they're welcome to do that, including the Suzuki Foundation.
And Falls is working to get that message across. Here, at a workshop given to small business owners who are interested in going carbon neutral, he's trying to convince people that ERA meets the highest standards around.
The process is very complex. We start with the legal agreement. That's a 100-year agreement, 80 to 100-year agreement.
This process is ERA's quality control. Before they can sell any credits, their projects must pass several tests. These include verification by third-party experts who judge ERA according to an internationally approved standard.
It's a very, very rigorous process. It's a very expensive process, but that's what's required to address these issues. These issues have been addressed.
But Falls is facing more than just a demanding process. He is also up against some stiff competition.
And the results of the work that we've done over the last 3 years, almost 3.5 years that we've been around now, we've been able to attract some pretty notable clients that we're pretty proud to work with, including Vancity.
Donovan Woolard is the COO of Offsetters, another Vancouver-based company offering carbon credits. Unlike ERA, however, Offsetters develops technology-based projects, which are designed to prevent the release of carbon into the atmosphere. At this greenhouse in Aldergrove, they have funded 2 separate projects. Len Cron is a manager at the greenhouse, and he demonstrated how the projects work.
You'll see them all bunched up right up against the truss. So they're right there. I don't know if you guys want to see them run. We can close them up and show you how they move and go from there.
When these curtains close, they insulate the greenhouse, keeping temperatures stable and heating bills down.
Typically the way we operate them is based on outside temperature and light levels. So in the morning we'll open them up depending on what the temperature is, and when it starts to cool down and the light drops off, then we close them up. But you can feel that humidity rise now as that screen closes, and you can hear that other buzzing that was just on is my vents opening up above it because the temperature is rising. So
Cron says these curtains can reduce energy demand by up to 40%.
There's a grate in there to take out the big stuff. Fuel comes up, over top.
The second project involves fuel switching. Instead of running on conventional natural gas, this boiler runs on wood waste. And according to Offsetters, if not for the boiler, this wood would be left to rot, releasing its carbon into the atmosphere anyway. By burning this wood instead of natural gas, the boiler can earn carbon credits. Technology-based projects like these still need to be thoroughly verified, but unlike tree planting projects, they can produce real emission reductions fast. And these reductions are relatively easy to measure. For ERA, timeliness is proving to be a serious stumbling block. Not being able to show any immediate results is making potential buyers, like the provincial government, uncomfortable. As part of its pledge to go carbon neutral by 2010, Victoria has already begun shopping for offsets. They are currently looking for 70,000 tons in carbon credits. By 2011, the government expects to buy up to 1 million tons each year. And given that they're prepared to invest $25 per ton, there's a lot of money up for grabs. But the standards set by the Ministry of Environment make it almost impossible for ERA to qualify. Tim Lezouk is an executive of climate change policy for the Ministry of Environment. He says the government is not willing to buy so-called ex-ante offsets.
An ex-ante offset is a emission reduction that hasn't occurred yet. That risk of allowing ex-ante can create a lot of problems for not only accounting, but for the environmental integrity of the targets if you start allowing reductions that haven't occurred yet to come into your system.
Lezouk says forests have a role in fighting climate change. It's just harder to fund long-term projects like tree planting. But that is not stopping ERA, and Falls maintains a strong faith in his business model.
What we're doing, the benefits are going to be largely enjoyed by future generations. We can't undo the fact that it takes time to grow trees and restore ecosystems, but we do not apologize for delivering these benefits.
By claiming tomorrow's benefits today, Falls has a long, hard journey ahead. It won't be easy convincing people that more than the fate of his company depends on these little trees.